And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if you're tuning into us on all your favorite podcast platforms as well, too. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. And Kelcey, a lot of people consider it the dull time in sports, but there's still quite a bit to talk about as well, too. We're definitely not sure on any storylines going in this week.
Man, storylines is all we're filled with today. I feel like we have storylines coming out of the wazoo at this point. We have so many things happening that is just going to impact the landscape of every single sport right now. The only one that maybe isn't impacted is the NHL, and that's because they just crowned their Stanley Cup champion. By the way, congratulations to the Colorado Avalanche on that one. But yeah, no, this is storyline central. This is that time before really things start kicking off, and then everything has to happen right now because we got off seasons coming up. We have trade deadlines starting, or being able to teams making roster moves. It's a wild time now.
Absolutely, as well too. Why not? We don't need to wait any longer. We're going to go ahead and jump right into our first segment of every show, and that is known as the tip-off. The tip-off, of course, brought to you by Dr. Squatch. Smell like a man, feel like a champion. Get that special scent for that special someone in your life. Click the link in our bio. It'll take you right there as well too. And you kind of mentioned it. We're going into the NBA offseason. It's been just a few weeks since we saw the champions crowned. And you know what? We already got some drama as well, too. I feel like the old cliche, the NBA offseason, is arguably better than the actual season sometimes as well, too, with all the things that happen as well, too. And it is starting off quick, fast, and in a hurry so far this year. And I'm going to point out to the one that sticks out to me right away, and we'll work our way around the horn. But Bradley Beal, he's been talked about for trade rumors for – what was it, like 5 years now, it feels like as well, too, just because he's always that good and the Wizards are always that bad. It's like just put this walking bucket on any team and watch them contend. Well, now he's declining the player option. He is going to hit the open market now as well, too. And there's 30 teams out there that would definitely enjoy his services as well, too. So he will definitely have his litter to pick from.
I'm glad you corrected yourself there. Literally every team in the league wants this man on their team. And honestly, Wizards fans right now are probably crying, and they're like, oh, not Bradley, finally. Like, this is the day they've all been dreading is the moment Bradley Beal is going to walk away from the team, because he's been a stalwart for this Wizards team. And honestly, he probably should have been gone from the Wizards a season ago,
maybe 4,
a half a season ago, maybe 2.5, whatever you want to say. Like, he should have been out somewhere else at some point in time. And unfortunately, here he is still having to make this decision to kind of walk away from a contract here, which unfortunately does prevent him from getting a super max at this point. He can still get a max contract. He can't get a super max by walking away, though, which is the only disappointing thing, unless he re-signs with the Wizards. But yeah, no, this is a great move for Bill. Get this man, any team, all 30, the whole league at this point in time. You know what? Call up the J League, call up the KBL. They all want him to. Everybody wants this man playing in their league, because Bradley Beal is a scorer at heart, and he is a great teammate to have, great kind of representative of your ball club too. So yeah, he's on his move. I honestly don't have any predictions on where he's going, because it is a crapshoot. It's who wants to throw the most amount of bags at this man is going to get his services.
I think that you kind of described it too. He is a bucket. He is a good ball handler, a decent defender, a little small for a 2, but decent defender. And he's a great ambassador as well, too, as coaches the AAU team. There's still that one outstanding audio clip where he looked at everybody's base like, and if you're going to take me one-on-one, I don't think so, because if you can't take me one-on-one, you can't make the league. So you better have a plan B, basically more or less the gist of what he said as well, too. There's still that epic, basically viral clip of him. You mentioned you don't really have any predictions for him as well, too. So I'm going to throw out a couple of them as well, too, just to have a few. One team that's very interesting, it's a team that needs another superstar. They need somebody to get a bucket. They're known for pulling big free agents. I think Miami Heat could be very interesting to look at. The Heat culture, the Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler, Adebayo. They needed somebody else who can get any sort of bucket whatsoever in the playoffs besides Jimmy, because Bam was too hit or miss. Tyler Hero was not a hero, whatever cliche you want to use. Kyle Lowry couldn't stay healthy. Bradley Beal and Jimmy buckets, that's quite the dynamic duo, and they've done this thing before, so that's not a bad option for him as well. He did mention when he left the money behind, I can't end my career knowing that I didn't give myself the best chance to win. They were, what would you say, like a Jimmy bucket 3 away from the finals? Like that's how close they were already, and they were there's a lot of missing parts on that team as well too. So there's an option that I could see as well too. I can see Portland is another very out there option as well too. I mean, you have Dame Lillard, who will be coming back healthy next year. They just got Jeremy Grant and are still looking to shop that top 10 pick as well too, to maybe get a player. Then you add in Bradley Beal. See, Dame and CJ McCollum was fun. Dame and Bradley Beal, Lord. I mean, The defensive wise won't be that great, but offensively, good luck everybody else. So there's a couple of options that kind of stand out to me and then of course, there's always the Lakers. Every time there's a big free agent available, the Lakers are always tied to them. I don't know how they would pay them. I don't think they would have to do some Los Angeles Rams BS to manipulate the salary cap and pay everybody. But you know what? The Rams are just a hop, step, and a skip away. So maybe they find a way to pull it off. But those are a few teams for me.
I actually like the fact that you threw out the fact that the Lakers have to throw some cap changes around there, because I do want to talk about the top 5 cap spaces right now, projected wise. Obviously, you have the Pistons, number 1. That makes sense. They're probably going to go after DeAndre and maybe DeJounte Murray. They should go after Bradley Beal, but I don't know where he's going to fit into that young backcourt.
Yeah, Bradley's not going there. I can't see him going anything that wasn't like affirmatively in the playoffs last year at this point. Otherwise, he might as well go back to the Wizards for more money.
Now, there are 2 that I'm looking at that are actually really curious because of everything they have around them. The San Antonio Spurs, who have are number 2, projected $31 million. And then there's always the team that I was always mentioned in every free agency lately, the New York Knickerbockers. $18 million projected in cap space, which is the 5th highest in the league, which means they have probably close to about $30 million they can spend with all the tax luxuries and everything else they can do. That opens up some very curious options there, because everybody talks about the Knicks always wanting to get that big free agent signing. I know obviously Bradley Beal is not the number 1 big superstar you'd want in a big franchise like that, because you probably want somebody a little outspoken, but I think Bradley Beal could handle the New York media better than anybody that's on this market right now. And that's saying a lot, because I do think what he would sign in and do with the Knicks, he could do just by doing Bradley Beal things. He doesn't talk a lot. He lets his game do his talking. He doesn't get flustered by the media. He honestly is probably one of the bigger jokesters when it comes to talking to the media. And I don't know if that's just due to being in Washington for as long as he has been or what, but he is just a guy that just goes out there and he does his thing. And that could be the perfect fit for a Knicks team who is looking to try to get that senior leader in there with RJ Barrett, with, you have, oh God, why'd I blank on his name right now? The other Duke. What's up?
Not Julius Randle?
Well, Julius Randle as well, but also the other Duke product from the same year from RJ Barrett and Zion, and Cam Reddish, as he came in the trade for Kevin Knox. So you took a look at those 2 guys, plus Julius Randle, obviously. You had Bradley Beal in there. Could be an interesting little quartet of players there. And you talk about a Knicks team 1 year removed from the playoffs, probably wanting to get back pretty soon.
I am curious because they are rumored to be spending a 4-year, $100+ million contract on Jalen Brunson here. It looks like they're about to drop the Brinks truck at him too. So if they can afford that, that is very interesting as well too. I mean, they're paying Jalen Brunson like he's Bradley Beal. So if they have enough money for both of that could be interesting. So I'm curious about that one as well. You mentioned the New York media market, so I'm going to transition to another guy who's been at the forefront of that for the last 12 months. Kyrie Irving, after all the talk about potential sign and trade, will he stay or will he go, all of that, deciding to take that option and stick with the Nets, not getting the long-term deal he wanted, but he will stick around with Kevin Durant and the Nets, getting a chance to run it back next year with Ben Simmons as well too. My initial thoughts on that were, will they all play together? Will we see them all play together? Because it seems to be cursed every time there is a trio of superstars in Brooklyn. Still haven't got over that yet. So you know what? I don't know what to think of it. I don't want to say it's fantastic. I won't say it's bad because I just don't know. I need to see them all at least suit up one game together before I know.
Here's a crazy thing. So in his contract with Brooklyn, Kyrie has played a total of 106 games. This last season that just passed, Kevon Looney played 106 games. Mm-hmm. It's like Kevon Looney is not obviously a big name, but if he's playing as consistently as Kyrie's playing, you're gonna get. And then the difference being obviously Kyrie over a couple years and Kevon in 1 year. It's sad because you just don't get enough production for how much he's getting paid. And I if he plays this season, it'll be great. Honestly, I hope he can play a whole season. Is really what it comes down to. He's had his mental issues. He's had his the issues with COVID. He's had the issues with just in general staying healthy. And you wish him well. Obviously, Kyrie is one of those guys that you're like, I want to see him on the court. You wish him well. I hope he has everything figured out because I want to see him on the court another year. Whether signs are that KD will re-sign once Kyrie decided his decision because he wants to play with Kyrie. If that's the case, then you have those two plus Ben Simmons, who's finally fully healthy after the back surgery and everything going on with that. Like, I think this Brooklyn Nets team could be a fun team if they can all get it together and stay on the court. But if they don't, it's just going to be a lot of the same old with this Nets team, and that's kind of disappointing. It's going to be the ultimate what could have been team if you really want to talk about it that way. If they don't play together,
I do think Ben Simmons can bring out the best in Kyrie, because when we saw Kyrie in Cleveland, he got to play off the ball a lot with LeBron running that point forward LeBron ball, basically. Ben Simmons can do a lot of that, where Kyrie can move off the ball, get into the spots that he likes, gets the ball, then go to work, not have to bring it up, run the offense, quote unquote. He can just go out and be his bucket, then dish when the double team comes. Like when he's at his best, he's really a two guard in a point guard's body that can kind of run the offense a little. He's basically kind of like Bradley Beal, honestly, who can play both guards, but thrives in the get as a get bucket guard, not a distribute guard. And Ben Simmons gives you that from a power forward spot. So I do think that can provide him a lot of versatility. Plus, they still got Seth Curry. They still got snipers too. So if they can all stay together, we might finally see that Nets team that for the last 3 years that people have been putting in the finals as well too. So that'd be a fun one. Yeah,
I love everything about what that team could be built to be. And I love Steve Nash as a coach. I love him as a coach. I didn't think he should deserve this job. I still think Ime Udoka should have gotten this Nets job back in the day, but you can't replace that. Now Udoka has a fantastic job in Boston, and now it's Steve Nash. Like, you have to prove yourself, and unfortunately, if he doesn't have Kyrie, it's tough to prove yourself when you have a superstar who doesn't play more than 30 games a season. That's tough.
I think he definitely would have benefited from being an assistant coach before a head coach as well. It would have helped him to get a little something before being thrust in this one. But speaking of the Nets, we're going to continue down this NBA offseason carousel. A former Net, James Harden, actually turning down his option with the 76ers, and he will hit free agency as well too. There are some rumors he's might be strongly leaning towards re-signing with the Sixers at a different price. This will alleviate some cap space for him. But James Harden hitting the open market after a not so stellar last year, both with the Nets and with when he came back with the Sixers. I think he had one or two games where he looked like James Harden, but did not look too great either. So even I feel like he'll have a good market based on name value, but I don't think he's going to have like another $200 million contract, $150 million. I don't think there's a huge payday out there for James Harden unless the 76ers and Daryl Morey are like, you know what, we traded the house for him. We have to pay him. Now we don't have a choice.
Yeah, like I think this is honestly, I feel like this is all signs to point to him re-signing with the 76ers, because the biggest issue is the cap space that was involved if he had opted in, because there's not cap space involved for the Sixers at that point in time. So him opting out actually allows them to go and fill in a bench. You get a mid-level exception, you get a 4.1 sign and trade deal as well, and then there's a couple other things like a biennial exception that you can get from this. It's like $4.1 million space for a season. So I do think him opting out opens up the door for him re-signing with the Sixers. But if he doesn't re-sign with the Sixers, I don't know where he goes, because he is washed right now. Like, he is used goods, and he has to prove himself. He's not going to get a supermax again. He's not going to get a max again. He's not even going to get an 80% max deal. Like, to be fair to any team that's going to sign him, you are signing a veteran role player at this point in time. You're not signing James Harden anymore. You're going to be signing a veteran role player, and you have to accept that. And do not overpay. Sacramento Kings, I'm directly looking at you. Do not overpay, because they have been rumored to be talking about going and getting James Harden, because they're still in the rumors of shipping out to De'Aaron Fox for whatever reason. Anyways, whoever goes and gets James Harden, do not overpay. He is a washed role player, and you know what? If he provides that role, you paid for what you get. If he exceeds that role, you just got the best deal in history. And it may only be a one-season deal, but congratulations, you just made a great deal and got the James Harden for what is now James Harden pricing. So I think this is something that needs to be looked at, but I do think this is all intents and purposes. He's going to re-sign with the Sixers for a cheaper deal. I think he realizes what he is. And I think that's why he opted out. He's like, I want a team around me. I don't want to be just me and Joel. Like, I think that's what it comes down to.
Here's a crazy idea. If he does not go to the 76ers, how about a team like the Nuggets for him, where you get to play with a guy like Jokic who can dish you the ball. You could play a little bit off ball, not just catch and shoot a little bit more often. Jamal Murray coming back, who could be that primary ball handler as well, too, to kind of mitigate your usage rate. And it takes a lot of pressure off, because you kind of almost have, I don't want to say you have to ignore James Harden in this role, but a fully healthy Jamal Murray and an MVP, a back-to-back MVP Jokic are a little more concerning than what we saw from James Harden the last year or so. So I think that's going to open things up. Plus Michael Porter when he's healthy as well too. I think that's not a bad fit for him as well too. And the way they kind of rotate, he doesn't have to worry about defense quite as much with some of the wing players they have. So that is an option as well too. And with that second unit, he'll get to that's when he can kind of be ball dominant James Harden as well too. Could be like maybe he starts and then he stays in a little bit longer while the other guys catch a break. Kind of that sort of thing that they did with him with the Nets as well too. So I don't hate that fit for him as well too. But I do agree with you. It feels like 76ers are far and away the leading candidate. Then after that, it gets murky at that point. We'll say murky is the adjective.
That's a good way to put it. But I will say that if he goes to the Nuggets, can the Nuggets afford to have two guys that don't play defense on their starting rotation? Because I'm sorry, Nikola Jokic, he plays defense kind of like Steph Curry plays defense. So, if you're going to hate on one, you got to hate on the other for their defensive abilities. They're not fantastic by any means. They're average at best. And then James Harden is, when he wants to, he can play average to above average defense. But can you afford to have that night in and night out in your starting rotation? Can they provide enough points for that to matter is the question.
That is the ultimate question as well, too. I mean, the Warriors just won a championship playing 4-on-5 on offense. So you never know. Sometimes 3-on-5, depending on how the rotations went as well, too. So I guess anything is possible, but I do see the conundrum with that one as well, too. And of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Russell Westbrook looking like he's going to opt back in with the Lakers, catching that $47 million option as well, too. And all the talk about him leaving the Lakers, all of the bad rumors, all of the negativity, honestly, that's surrounding it as well, too. And it looks like they're going to run it back with him as well, too, depending on what else they can add in the offseason as well, too. But this one kind of surprised me. This one, it felt like the writing was on the wall that he was as good as gone from the Lakers. But looks like they'll be sticking around and they'll see what they could do with him moving into next year and a new coach. It's another year with an older LeBron, a hopefully healthier Anthony Davis. That's always up for debate year in and year out. But I am really curious to see how they plan on running this back and get different results without basically falling into the exact definition of insanity.
Well, if you believe Brian Windhorst, and we all know who Brian Windhorst is, a.k.a. the mouthpiece of LeBron, there is a lot of rumors of LeBron joining the Cavaliers before the start of the season. And that is very interesting. Basically the writing is that if Colin Sexton isn't on a deal by July 14th, by July 14th, and then Karis LeVert has not been re-signed to an extension, then that is the writing that you'll see LeBron potentially making the move to Cleveland because they're holding that cap space for him. Very interesting aspect to this whole Russell Westbrook thing. Now, with that said, the Russell Westbrook signing or taking the option actually is a great deal for Russell. First of all, congratulations. Take your bag, kid. Walk home with it. You were far underpaid in OKC for quite a few years there, so congratulations on your money now. However,
you skip your Lou. You throw that bag over your shoulder and you skip and whistle while waving to everybody who yelled at you, and you change your jersey number to 47 to represent each million you just collected too, just to rub it in their face.
Let's not go Dennis Schroeder on everybody, okay? But on that topic though, don't be surprised to see a sign and trade still with Russell at this point in time. I mean, I think you're right. The writing is on the wall. There's so many things that need to be done in LA. Number one to me is honestly, I don't think you can survive if LeBron's going to be head coach as well as, so it's a situation where your new head coach needs to step up day one and prove that LeBron can take a step aside and be just be the manager on the court, not off the court, because LeBron is too far in depth off the court right now to be helpful to your team. The fact is that you don't check stats on the sideline and then walk off 5 minutes before the end of the game. If you're LeBron James, you should not ever do that. Yet that's what we saw LeBron do all throughout the playoffs last season. So with that said, throughout the end of the season last season. And with that said, I think that's number one that needs to be fixed, getting LeBron on the right page. Number two, wouldn't be surprised to see this Russell Westbrook thing turn into a sign and trade type of situation.
I saw something that was interesting. I just want to get your thoughts on it as well too. So there's a lot of talk about maybe Russell Westbrook should maybe go see like an eye specialist, because there were some shots where it looked like the depth perception was a little bit off as well too. And so they kind of like Jameis Winston with the LASIK surgery as well too. Just maybe take a look, because as you get older, a lot of the wear and tear, maybe your eyesight wanes a little. This isn't like a shot saying he's blind. This is
no.
Like there's even, I think it was Evan Fournier, the Magic player, who said after he had COVID, his depth perception, that was one of the weird side effects he was dealing with as well too. Just because we've seen Russell Westbrook, he shot 85% from the free throw line at one point in his career. Last year, he was shooting like 61% or something ridiculous like that. We saw him missing the backboard on occasions as well, too. Not just because he overshot it while sprinting, but just completely airmailing it. So maybe not a bad idea just to get it looked at as well, too. Just obviously, I'm not saying it solves everything, but maybe that might solve some of the erraticness we saw last year. So he's never going to be spot and shoot Steph Curry to play, or like JJ Redick or anything like that, where you just stick him next to LeBron and they'll get 15 points off of just catch and shoots. But maybe just the ability to finish some of the times he goes to the bucket, finish when he pulls up as well, too, just to accumulate buckets, if you will, as well, too. A lot of things that he seemed to be missing last year. It's a stretch, but if you're going to be stuck with him with 47 million, I mean, you could spend a little bit of that. Just take a look, see what you can do at that point.
I mean, yeah, like I am all for NBA player, any player in general, going and getting the health check, like getting what they need to do health wise taken care of. Let's be very clear about that. If there is something wrong with his eyes, and that is maybe it is a depth perception issue. We always talk about stadium changes and things and how that could be an issue. But yeah, I do think if it is a major issue, I do think it's something that needs to be addressed. Obviously, we're talking about the same guy though, who career wise still averages 44% from the field. I mean, he is still right. And he hit 44% last year. I mean, 29.8 from three. He averages about 31% from three, his best year ever being 34. So I do think that like he's still on average to be Russell Westbrook. That doesn't change. But I do think there is a little something to be said about that potentially. That, I mean, I can tell you from my own personal experience with like going to an eye doctor because just things got a little fuzzy. Going from a little fuzzy to crystal clear is literally night and day when you're playing a sport. Obviously, I'm not playing it at a high level. I'm playing it at a rec league level at this point in time in my life. But I couldn't imagine how much it would take, like how much advantage it would give you if you're playing at a blurry level and you're still playing at a high level. Like if you're a Russell Westbrook who's averaging a triple-double and everything's blurry, and then all of a sudden you can see the basket clearly, you can see the ripples on the net when the ball goes through. Like you can see where fingertips are when in passing lanes. Could you imagine how much more he would excel if, let's say, something like that changes? Like, if he can all of a sudden see these things that he couldn't see before. That would be night and day. And obviously, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you what is wrong with him. But I can tell you from my own personal experience, going to an eye doctor to change and get contacts, or God knows, honestly, Russell Westbrook being the fashionista he is, put on some Urkel glasses, and that man will be out here rocking like, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with the goggles on. Like, you name it, and then this man will go do it, and he'll be exceptional at it if that's maybe the case. But, I mean, yeah, it's a possibility. I mean, as you said, as you get older, eyes change, things change. Maybe that is the case. Maybe it's just mental. I don't know. But if that's the case, and we can go to an eye doctor and get it fixed with contacts, Russell, $47 million just hit your bank account tomorrow. Like, go now. You're in LA. They can afford it. Like, maybe don't get LASIK. Maybe just get some contacts and get LASIK next offseason. But like, yeah, go do it.
I'm just saying it would be something interesting to keep an eye out for as well, too. I don't know if that is the case. It could just be he's always been a little bit, I don't want to say erratic, but he plays so hard it sometimes turns into kind of like the airplane with the propeller missing, so as well too. It almost spins too fast in one spot. Sometimes he is, for better and for worse, almost the Tasmanian devil, which makes him electric, but sometimes that's where you see like some of the erraticness come in. So maybe it isn't lazy, maybe he's just erratic and a little bit older and in a situation where he doesn't have as high as usage. So the things look a little worse than they do as well too. And, the microscope crucible that is playing in Los Angeles with LeBron and Anthony Davis on top of it as well too. So that could be something on top of it. But that'll do it for our tip-off, talking about some NBA coverage. That is going to lead us into Kelcey's second favorite part of every single show. That is, of course, the main event, brought to you by In the Clutch Apparel. Click link in our bio, use code HILOSports, get yourself some outstanding sports gear at a reasonable price as well. So you definitely don't want to miss out on this. It is a clutch addition to any outfit. And Kelcey, we'd be remiss we haven't talked about it a whole lot. We've been kind of trying to wait for it to play out, but things seem to be starting to steam up a little bit. We're looking at the Deshaun Watson case going on in Cleveland right now. Meeting on Tuesday, having a meeting with the NFL and the independent arbitrator, if I'm not mistaken, as well too. There's been discussions about the suspension as well. Rumors are, and I'm putting rumors in quotations for those who can't see, those quotations are firing on all cylinders right now. Rumors that the NFL wants an indefinite suspension, aiming for a year, but would prefer indefinite. NFLPA wants 0, but might accept 4, basically, more or less. And then it's the plan is somewhere it's going to melt in the middle. It sounds like they're on very, very far different ends of the stake. The NFL basically saying like, look, Ben Roethlisberger got 6 games and then worked down to 4 with 1 accusation, I believe it was at the time, 2 overall, but 1 that he got suspended for. Deshaun had 24 of those, and 20 of them just got settled with 4 still standing, if I'm not mistaken. And now the Houston Texans are getting drug into it as well. The NFLPA, they're basically saying you didn't suspend Robert Kraft, you didn't suspend Jerry Jones, you didn't suspend Daniel Snyder. What's going on here? So a complete mess from both sides as well, too. And honestly, I'm happy I don't have to make this decision. We will leave it that way.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, to your point, as far as what the league's insisting, it was 2 people in attendance, both obviously having to speak among under the condition of anonymity because it's not a public hearing. One saying the league is insisting on an indefinite suspension, and then also corroborating that Watson's side is arguing that there's no basis for punishment that significant, saying they would take as little as 0, but they're looking for as little as 0, but at a minimum of 4 is what they'd expect, which. Based off of precedents, unfortunately, the NFL has dropped the ball on this one for a long time coming. Now, one thing to take into account between the Roethlisberger and Deshaun situation, the biggest difference being the new CBA Article 46, which gives Goodell that overarching power to suspend for whatever and however. And that's kind of a big deal when you look at this as well. And obviously, having... This is a really interesting aspect of this conversation with Deshaun. The independent arbitrator is actually former U.S. District Judge Sue Robinson, who was the first female circuit judge in Delaware at the time when she was a U.S. District Judge. And so it's a very interesting aspect to this as well that she has been very strong on sexual abuse cases in her career. Now, I don't know what that leads to as far as the punishment for Goodell, but I honestly, indefinite suspension, probably not. A year-long suspension, let's be honest, that's probably better. That he'd be better. Like he'd be getting off pretty scot-free if that's a year-long suspension compared for 24 civil lawsuits. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, as is the biggest thing to say. And there's 24 smoking guns right now. Yeah, I honestly, this is such a hard topic to talk about because there are so many cases that it's like it is something that is never heard of before. We have never had a situation where there's one player charged with 24 different lawsuits. Like, nothing has ever come close. Dan Snyder is the closest with 12, I believe, is what he was. Robert Kraft was 6 or 8.
And I don't even know what those were off the top of my head either as well too. It's definitely something unprecedented to say the least. And a couple of things I kind of want to add to what you point out as well too. Sorry, Sue Robinson, you were brought in to be a third-party arbitrator, and this is your first test basically as well. So as soon as you're brought in, you don't even get to ease yourself into it. They throw the gauntlet at you right away. You don't get to work your way up the castle to fight Wario. Wario drops in front of you when you're on level 1 basically because this is quite the doozy to deal with as well too. So welcome to the NFL, I guess, right? And then there's obviously no timeline for that as well, too. Like she can make her once the hearing ends, she has time to make her decision. Hearing is going to continue on Thursday of this week as well, too. So we got a long ways to go. What I'm also curious is what the settlements will play a part in it. So obviously 20 of the 24 have settled. There's still 4 out there. So question is he going to take those ones into civil court? Are they just not? I'm curious to see how those play out as well, too, because there was a talk as well, too, that maybe part of the reason he settled is because you can't really go to court 24 different times like that. It's going to take too long. And if they're going to suspend you during those things, he'll be suspended forever at this point as well, too. Court's not exactly an expedient process, let alone times it by 24. So I wonder if maybe that had something to do with it. And he'll fight 4 of those in civil court. See if he almost as all right, hypothetically speaking, you proved yourself right or you saved your name in those 4 cases, maybe public perception. I don't know. I'm curious to see what the difference is with those 4 cases compared to the other 20. Maybe they just didn't want to settle. I don't know. So I'm curious to see how those play and if that affects the decision. Another thing they pointed out too is last year he was not suspended, but he didn't play and he got paid. It wasn't even an exempt list. It was basically just like a scratch every week. There was rumor if he gives back basically all the money he made last year, they count that as part of a year suspension. Then you take out 6 to 8 games this year. So it's a quote unquote year and a half suspension. But some of that last year already counts as time served. There's interesting things going around with that as well, too. So I'm curious what your thoughts would be if they decide to do something like that, where they count last season as a suspension, you pay back all the money you made last year, basically, and then you take out half of this season. Do you think that's, I don't want to say just, but that's a very interesting scenario considering last year he wasn't suspended. He wasn't on the exempt list. It was basically the Texans just refused to play him, basically. That's honestly what happened as well, too. It was basically just sat him on ice.
Yeah, Let me first clear up. I misspoke earlier with the Article 46 of the CBA. It's actually if the union or league appeals Judge Sue Robinson's decision, then Goodell gets the full umbrella to just be like, "Here's my book,
That's when
take it."
that's when he's back to judge, jury, and executioner.
Exactly. So, or his designee, which in this case he might designate Judge Robinson back again to be like, "Hey, yeah, your decision's final." But now, sorry, I misspoke on that earlier. But I just wanted to correct that. As far as like if that's like if he gives back the money, I don't know if he can give back the money. He just settled 20 different lawsuits. That you got to assume there's financial aspects to those lawsuits. Yeah, he just got a $230 million guaranteed contract. That doesn't come all at one time. Like, I don't think he could legitimately afford to pay back the money. But and if that's the case, if he paid back the money he got last year and they suspended and counted that towards his time served situation type of thing essentially, and like yeah, that's a year suspended. I still don't think that's enough. Personally, like this is again, it is such a drastic amount of lawsuits against him, like unheard of amounts of lawsuits. 24. I just can't get over the number of them. It's I honestly don't know what the right answer is here because it just feels like I want to say personally I'm so like grotesquely disgusted by 24 possible lawsuits that is 24 possible occasions that he that are recorded 24 possible occasions that have been reported that he did something. It's just I grotesquely just want to be like never see the field again. But at the same time, like logically speaking, I don't know if that's like you can't, there's that whole like, oh, you want to give humans a chance thing. I don't know if that's the right situation here. Like, so personally, I don't know if like, yeah, he paid back the money if that counts towards a year served, and maybe he serves another year and that's good. I don't know, but I personally believe at least 1 year from this date, is the bare minimum I should see him suspended.
One thing that I am curious about too is because he did sign that extension with the Texans, but I don't think he ever played under that extension because I don't think that started yet. So he'd have that signing bonus, but none of that pay, if I'm not mistaken. So if I'm not mistaken, paying it back wouldn't actually even be that bad as well, too, compared to what it'd be if he had to pay back this upcoming contract once this kicks in the full gear. Plus, he has a signing bonus from this one that's going to be assured because, from what I understand, the signing bonus in the first 2 years of this contract, even if the Browns wanted to get out from underneath it, there is not a darn thing they could do about it with the signing bonus in the first 2 years. After that, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room to get out if they need to. So maybe he does have the financial means. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. All I know is that is an absolute mess. And you kind of you're good.
I would say there's a reason they made his first year of his contract a $1 million contract. Let's just be very clear and say the Cleveland Browns knew what they were doing with that contract signing.
And I know, yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of their contracts are weirdly like that, like Denzel Ward's, Myles Garrett's, and things like that as well too. And you can make the argument, well, they're paying Baker this year. That's why, in case they had to keep Baker, they didn't want to have to do too much. That there's a little bit of okay, just in case too. Like that was definitely in the back of the mind. It wasn't done just or coincidentally. Like all signs point to it for a reason. I agree on that one as well too. I do want to say one last thing. You said so. Your thought is that he should be suspended one more year regardless as well too. Is that kind of your final prediction as well too? So he won't play it down this season?
I honestly don't think he does play it down this season. If he does play it down this season, we won't be seeing him until week like 12. I honestly think if his suspension isn't a full season, he'll be suspended the 8 to 10 game range, and we won't actually see him play until week 12 to 14, just because that obviously catch up time. They always talk about how to get back into shape, but I personally believe this is at least 1 year. I just like I honestly have to go back to Josh Gordon. Like the man got suspended multiple years for drugs for marijuana. Like this is not marijuana we're talking about. This is not a drug that is legal now in so many states and continues to be legalized. It's not a drug that you have changed the legal limit that an NFL player can have and increase the amount of THC found in a person's bloodstream year after year after year. This is not that situation. This is a situation that is very, very illegal, literally all over the world, and it's not getting better. Like it's not something that it just becomes you can brush under the rug. So I don't know. I just like if Josh Gordon got suspended for multiple years, I don't see why Deshaun shouldn't be suspended for multiple years as well. It's just I don't know how much of that is my personal feelings versus I understand how the NFL works and it's a business type of situation. Like I can't honestly separate the two of them right now, and that's what's tough about this whole situation is I can't separate what is I know the NFL will probably do versus what I feel like the NFL should do.
It's a tough one too, because while you mentioned it happens all over the place, it's illegal everywhere. Unfortunately, it's not prosecuted nearly as often as it probably should be as well too. And that's where I'm at as well too. Is I don't know what it should be. If I had to make a prediction, my thought is I think they're going to initially rule the 1 year, but I think after the back and forth, it's going to get bartered down to 10 games. Honestly, I think they're going to and they're going to count last year's time served, so it's going to be like a would that be 27 game suspension or something weird like that as well too. It's going to be some goofy number that's not even an even number. It's going to be a random prime number like 27 or something like that as well too. And I think, excuse me, I will say I also think Jacoby Brissett season is about to start, but we'll talk about that here in just a moment as well too. We got a lot.
Yeah,
I think he's going to get fined a lot too. I think they're going to suspend and fine him because I don't think they take too kindly to that the first year being just like making just 1 million or whatever. I think he's going to get fined on top of it regardless. And you're like, oh, okay, Browns, you tried to pull a quick one. Here's a $30 million fine or something like that as well too. I think there'll be a little something pushed into it as well too.
It wouldn't honestly, this whole thing wouldn't surprise me if the Texans don't have to pay a dime for anything because they preemptively just said, no, you're not playing. Yeah, they paid him, but they didn't play him. And that's a big aspect because you don't get a game check if you don't play. And that's a big aspect to this whole thing that, he gets a prorated stipend versus what he would get if he actually played games. So that's an aspect of this, but I wouldn't surprise you to see the Browns actually get fined for trying to pull a fast one on the league.
Definitely a lot to see in how that plays out as well too. And you know what? I'm glad that it is not directly impacting me necessarily. I'm glad I don't have to make any of these decisions as well too. And
I'm not a Browns fan.
Tuesday. But speaking of the Browns as well, too, if this does happen, it sounds like it should be Jacoby Brissett season, but there is a glimmer that maybe they might see an old face return as well, too, as the recent rumor was they asked Baker, would you be willing to play for the Browns this year if Deshaun's not available? And he said, more or less, there'll have to be some reaching out to do. So with a little smirk on his face, like Browns come grovel to me and ask me to play as well, too. And you kind of mentioned this before, too, is like, you want to see maybe Baker comes back if Deshaun is like, the system, the offense, the players, come back in, get a chance to prove yourself, go make some cheese elsewhere. If it's a 6 to 8 game suspension for some reason, you can, let's say you have a good start to the season, maybe it's dealt by the trade deadline. So do you still kind of stand pretty firm on that stance, or do you think Baker should just be like, no, play with Jacoby, I'm gone?
God, can the dichotomy between the two situations of the quarterbacks be so different right now? So the Browns, obviously, if you guys don't know the history of what brought this to be, the Browns said, I want an adult playing quarterback, right? We have everything happening with Deshaun. On Tuesday, when Baker was asked this question, you know what Baker Mayfield was just finishing up doing? Holding a camp with kids for future quarterback athletes at the University of Oklahoma. So, talk to me about being an adult, but this man is doing charity work while the other man is facing legal troubles. That's all I'm going to say about that part of it. Now, as far as what Baker says, hilarious. I love every single moment of this because this is Baker's moment to be like, yes, come to me, feed me your woes, and just let me laugh at you while I continue to watch you guys go down in misery because you tried to ship me off. You didn't want me. And now you have no choice but to maybe grovel to me. Now, I do think Jacoby Brissett could be very, very advantageous in this system with the Browns. Let me be very clear about that and say that I do think this is a situation where Jacoby Brissett could succeed. Succeed to the level of playoffs, that's a conversation for another day. I haven't seen them play live action yet, but I do know I have seen Jacoby Brissett's skills, and I do know it works very well in a run-first, play-action set offense. Does that very well, and he can throw the hell out of a ball.
He's got a right.
Baker, yeah, exactly. Now, Baker, this situation with Baker, I still do believe that Baker, we do see him in a Browns uniform on week 1. I 100% still believe that. Do I think he starts? I think that's that is very going to be decided very much so in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. If he shows up for fall practices August 1st, 100% that man starts. Shows up August 12th, he'll start by week 3. And that's just how that's going to be. If he does not show up by August 12th, then he will be dealt. And it goes back to my other theory of him being released and ending up somewhere. But I do think that we will see Baker Mayfield on a Sunday in Cleveland, starting for the Browns this season.
Wow. Okay. I will start by saying I agree with everything said about Jacoby Brissett. I think he is a fantastic backup and a serviceable starter. You don't want him to be your quote unquote franchise guy, but in this situation where you need him to be game manager, Jacoby hit Amari Cooper on a slant route, play action, and flick it over to David Njoku. I think he's fantastic for this role. I think he's not a better quarterback than Baker, but I think his skill set actually is almost better for this offense because Baker, shorter guys, struggle seeing the middle of the field kind of in. He's great in those intermediate routes. That's where he was dangerous in Oklahoma with Mark Andrews and squad, but that was more from a shotgun and a pistol, spread it out type of set. And unfortunately, in the NFL, he hasn't quite got that rhythm yet. And in this offense, it's catered to make a quarterback's job easy. The problem is he can't always find those easy reads. It's same with Kyler Murray. He struggles to see the middle of the field sometimes, and that's where the easiest reads are. That's why Kyler Murray is either bombs away fade routes, or he's throwing a swing pass, or he's doing some Kyler Murray stuff. Problem is Baker doesn't run a 4.340, so he can't necessarily do that as well too. As much as sometimes he tries to outrun defensive ends around the edge that are much faster than him, but I digress. I just don't think he could. I don't think it's going to work out, honestly. He accused them last year of trying to sabotage him, basically, in a few of those games, and tried to basically call out the offense. They, like you said, allegedly said he needed to be a grown-up, and all signs point to they were done with him as well, too. They didn't even draft him. This regime didn't draft him. I don't think they even wanted him necessarily. So I think they're doing everything in their power to make it seem like, hey, we want to keep him as well. But I think they're just trying to get anything they can for him. I don't see him playing for the Browns. I think they'll keep him on the roster almost out of spite at this point because there's a lot of weird back and forth between them last year. It's like, they're like, Baker, do you think you should sit out this injury? No one tells me to sit out about me. Oh, the quarterback said that is what the coach and the GM say later. Like there's a lot of contentious disconnects. Like, cause almost see a spite thing. It's like, all right, Baker, you can play with us or you can go stay at home. Either way, it's fine. We're not paying Deshaun this year. Jacoby's cheap. We have plenty of cap space this year. Go hang out. So I can see it being spiteful as well too. But I can also see there's talks about Seattle making a move or ramping up to try and get Baker. There's talks about Carolina very interested, but quote unquote doing their homework. I don't know if either what they can get. I don't know. I feel like he's gonna have to get released almost. It feels like I don't know if I feel like both teams are being really stingy, or if maybe Seattle week 1 or 2, Drew Lock and Jacob Eason and Geno Smith just look terrible. They're like, okay, we'll give you a 5th round pick and we'll take that $12 million of cap or whatever it is. I think I can see it happening early in the year, but it's really tough depending on if that Deshaun suspension, how that plays out as well too. But I personally do not think he will be in a Browns uniform, even if he decides to show up at like in August. He's like, all right, guys, I'll play. It's like, yeah, you can sit on the bench. I could see it turning into a weirdly uncomfortable situation for everybody, like it was a lot of times last year for everyone.
I could see that, but I honestly think at the end of the day, the NFL is a business. Everybody understands that. And I think at the end of the day, egos will be set aside, namely the egos from the front office, because I don't think you can set aside a linebacker ego that plays quarterback. I don't think that's a possibility. I think that head is way too big.
The ego is completely sewn into everything as well, too. I will. If you're not humbled at this point, I don't think anything's moving that ego at this point. That is not a chip on the shoulder. That is just the shoulder.
Yeah, so I do think there's an aspect of that the Browns the front office might try to make it work, just for honestly potentially making the playoffs and getting that payday, because they have to pay Deshaun $230 million at the end of the day, and who knows, maybe they'd have to pay the league $30 million. But yeah, I do think that happens. But it's still, this is really crazy to me to think about with this whole thing with Baker. How many players in the realm of history have been shipped off and told they're not a grown man for trying to play through injury? Like, if you just think about his comments aside, how many players have we all thought about over the time being like, man, I wish they would just play through that injury. He's got a blister on his finger, play through that injury. Oh, he's got a toughed up leg, play through that injury. Like, every fan wants to have a player that goes and puts their quote life on the line, essentially. Unfortunately, Baker doesn't know how to shut up during these times, and it makes it so much worse for himself. So it's such a crazy concept to me. Like, this is a guy that literally brought you to your first playoff win in 25 years. Like, since the team returned, first playoff victory, and you're still hating on him for trying to play through injury. And like this, I feel like, I don't know, Cleveland standards got way too high at quarterback way too fast, because let's not forget your guys' previous best quarterback was Bernie Kosar, who not the best quarterback ever is where I'd fall Bernie Kosar in there. But like, I think, I don't know. I just find this whole situation very unique and very funny. It's kind of like the Bears complaining because they don't have a great passing quarterback. You've never had a great passing quarterback, Bears. Like the Browns are the same thing. It's like you've never had a really great quarterback. You just had a bunch of guys that
you got to turn back 100 years, but he exists. I will not take Otto Graham slander.
Okay, fair enough. Yes, you have Otto Graham. Otto Graham, but in the modern NFL, let's just say modern NFL style. But yeah, like I don't know. This is really unique, and I do hope for the best. Honestly, all parties involved, I hope for the best. I hope all situations resolve themselves well. But I do think Jacoby Brissett might be the best, most successful out of all the quarterbacks we're just talking about right now.
I do have to put one point of order here real quick, and it tickles me yellow when people keep pointing this out. Baker did not lead them to that playoff when it was 21-0 2 minutes in the game after it was fumbles shot over the head and Ben's 5 interceptions and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb going ballistic and Jarvis Landry breaking 12 tackles. Like,
no, that's fair.
Like I know Baker's QBR was in the 90s or whatever. He didn't have to do anything. I could have played quarterback in that game and found a way to pull it off. They almost let the Steelers come back after a 28-point lead. They couldn't move the ball on offense for a while until Nick Chubb broke a screen pass. I agree with you. He was the quarterback.
I'm not saying like that.
Let's all reel it in, saying that Baker led them to a playoff game. Ben Roethlisberger led them to the Browns playoff win with what he's pulling off in that first half. That's just
let me be clear and say I don't mean it that way. I mean,
I know
when it goes on record, your starting quarterback during your playoff victory was this man. It's like me saying Jim McMahon or Rex Grossman led the Bears to the Super Bowl. You know, Rex Grossman didn't lead the Bears to the Super Bowl. That run game and defense led them to the Super Bowl. But
exactly, and that was not a shot at you. That was a shot at everybody who keeps trying to say Baker's a playoff winning quarterback. I could have been the playoff winning quarterback in that game. I could have flicked it to Nick Chubb and watched him stiff arm people into oblivion and watched Myles Garrett and that defense absolutely terrorize Ben Roethlisberger for the first 2.5 quarters before they started getting something going as well too. But I do agree. He has kind of gotten the dirty end of the stick, unfortunately. But he dug so much of that himself. I think
he did it himself.
If you'd have just like played through, struggled, and then just like, I got to play better. Kept up. I think it. But when you, I digress as well too.
Linebacker ego at quarterback never equals positive.
Not at all, especially a physically limited quarterback on top of that as well too, where you can't. Cam Newton as a linebacker, okay. I mean that could work a little bit for a few seasons before the injuries pile up. Baker Mayfield with that linebacker mentality, yikes. I think he'll go somewhere else. I think he'll be just fine. He's he's a top 20 quarterback in the league. He's a starting quarterback somewhere, I'm sure. If not, he's the best backup in the NFL, probably. Like there are plenty of places he can go start somewhere as well, too. I mean, Seattle's a great fit. He could just bomb away to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He's still got a strong arm. He doesn't have to read the middle of the field with them. Just throw it deep every play. So that's an option too. We do have a little bit of time left to talk about some NFL offseason updates. I mentioned him a little bit. We'll talk about him again. Another quarterback on the market allegedly, but there's been no steam or traction. Jimmy Garoppolo still sitting there with San Francisco as well. And I want to go out on a limb, but I'm going to say I don't know if they really want to get rid of him unless they're going to basically get that second-round pick they gave up in return. And, well, it's too late for that now. So what do you think are the chances that Jimmy Garoppolo is a San Francisco 49er by the start of the season?
I still stand by what I've said all offseason. I don't think the 49ers are sold on Trey Lance. I don't think they are ready for that Trey Lance experience yet. And I think that's a big reason why Debo hasn't been dealt as well. I think these two things have played together. I want to move to Trey Lance for the Niners, and then Debo requesting a trade.
You're saying that he practiced with Trey Lance one time is like, nope.
All offseason, all last season as well. You know, Trey Lance was taking first team snaps last year during practice. So it's like he's had the experience with this guy, and he's not sold. And your number one receiver is like not sold on your number one quarterback. That's not good. And then, you have Jimmy just sitting there like, yeah, that's my boy. Like, that's my dude. And he has constantly talked about how much he loves Jimmy throwing him the ball. Well, somehow Jimmy's not traded, and somehow Debo has not technically removed his trade request, yet removed his trade request. All quotations. It's very unique. I stand by the fact that I think Jimmy's going to be the quarterback for this 49er team unless they get to the trade deadline and they're either out of it or there's an opportunity to go get, I don't know, Josh Allen. At this point in time, I don't think there's very many options. Obviously, Josh Allen is a joke. I do mean more of like a threat of like anything to add to your team to greatly benefit your Super Bowl chances. But I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo will be the starting quarterback for the Niners, at least until the trade deadline.
I'm gonna go in the opposite direction. I think he's going to be a 49er, barring either an injury in like preseason training camp, something like that, or I think he's going to be the backup to Trey Lance. I think they're going with Trey Lance next year regardless, and they're going to have Jimmy as like quote unquote insurance / maybe someone else gets injured before the trade deadline. Maybe we can swing him, but I think they're just being stubborn. Like, we know what you can win with him. He's not an elite guy. He's kind of in that Baker category of like top 20. You can win with him. You just need, parts around him. I think Jimmy's a little more, he can make a little bit more happen with a little bit less, just not nearly as pretty. But at the same time, they're not going to give away the milk. They're going to at least charge for the cow somewhat is what they're trying to do. They paid a second round pick for him. They'd probably like to get something in return. And they don't really have to trade him. That's kind of the interesting part as well, too. Like, they're not forced to, especially when his value is kind of low right now with all those injuries he had at the end of last year. Speaking of playing through injuries as well, too. Yeah, having all those off seasons, like the shoulder surgery, he's not even going to be ready to go till like August, I think they said, too. So I think they're going to just sit on back. Well, would you look at that? New Orleans, Jameis Winston, unfortunately, his knee went out, but you're 5-2 again. How about a 4th round pick or something like that as well, too? Or, well, would you look at this? Tua unfortunately went down again, but Miami, you have already spent so much money. You have to win now. What do you think about Jimmy? Like, different things like that as well, too. Or, wow, Kirk Cousins, you're not feeling it so much, are you, Mike McDaniel? What do you think? Like, you know what I mean? I could see them. They're in a position where they can kind of sit on and not have to worry. Where the Browns, you can't really sit on Baker, unfortunately, right now. It's a little bit different scenario. But I do think I can see them sitting on him and just kind of waiting and having him, Trey Lance, be like, all right, teach Trey Lance to kind of do everything you did last year as well. So that's a weird, interesting dynamic. And it's ironic considering Jimmy was supposed to go to Cleveland, but not too long ago. But then Bill Belichick's like, no, I like Jimmy. I'm not going to send him there. Kyle, please take Jimmy. And then that's how he ends up there as well, too. So very interesting dichotomy we have going on there as well, too. But I'm going to say he's a San Francisco 49er, but as a backup as well, too. And then we'll see if they believe in Trey Lance, because if Trey Lance comes out guns blazing or shows potential, promise, anything like that, even if they struggle a bit, I think he sticks around. But if Trey Lance looks like he's pooping the bed and there's a lot of concern, then you do have Jimmy to go to if need be. So you gave up way too much. I feel like they have to believe in Trey Lance. They have to just hope with it as well, too, which we kind of agree. Trey Lance, a lot of potential there. I don't know if you traded the house to get him at 3. Could be wrong. He could be Josh Allen for all we know. And he couldn't have gone to a better situation. So if he's going to succeed, here's where it's going to be. Like, this is the ultimate Trey Lance situation.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, I still feel like I stand by what I said when Trey Lance was drafted. I still think he needs 2 years to develop. This would be his second year developing. I'm not against having him sit the bench until the trade deadline and then go Trey Lance. He's obviously, depending on where you are, if you can still keep Jimmy in there and you're still competitive throughout the rest of the season, then do so. Like, I don't think there's any need for this 49ers team to devote this season to being Trey Lance do or die. I do think they have another season where they have a lot of talent that does not go out of under contract. You still have all your talent is under contract for at least another season, I believe. So I don't think you need to force this one if you don't have to, if you're the Niners. And that's just my feeling on this one. I think this is the one team in the league where I can literally look at it and be like, dude, don't stress. Like, just ride out the wave of Jimmy and see how long he can go. And if you know what, you make it through the season with Jimmy, then ship him off and see what happens. Like, then he goes and you're good. You have Trey Lance. It
is weird because they're too good to possibly take a shot at a young quarterback right now. They're almost too good. It's like a steroided up version of the Chiefs when they decided to get rid of Alex Smith and go with Patrick Mahomes. That one obviously worked out for them, but it doesn't mean it's going to work out here necessarily. I think that's what I feel. That's the downside too, is we're in the era where the young quarterback on the cheap contract is usually how you win, especially if you can keep all those pieces around him. And they're probably, it's hard to use 2 years on that rookie contract and not play him. So you don't get the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre thing anymore as well too, which is probably the reason Aaron Rodgers is a top 10 quarterback of all time. If you play him right away, he is not the same Aaron Rodgers as well. So I agree with you. If you can feel comfortable sitting Trey Lance and using him sparingly, I don't hate that idea either. I really don't hate that idea either, because I think there's a lot of talent there. Nothing quite like actual in-game experience, but I digress. I digress as well too. There's a lot going on there as well too, but there's a lot more NFL offseason updates to come, and I look forward to seeing a lot of them as well too. And if you're the 49ers as well, you know what? Maybe you go one more year with Jimmy, then you pay all of your talent like Bosa, Debo, all them, then you bring in Trey Lance on the rookie deal. And I don't know. This is why I said to you they should have taken Justin Fields, but I digress. Because with Justin Fields, they make the playoffs next year regardless, and I don't think there's a question.
Yeah. Like 100%. You could put Justin Fields in this team right now, and I'd feel okay. Like, all right, bye Jimmy. Like, it's not a question of whether Jimmy is good enough. It's literally just bye Jimmy. You're being replaced. Like, it is that time. Like, but I don't think with Trey Lance he's just not shown enough. I don't know.
And they, got to stay healthy too as well. Too. You started 2 games last year and unfortunately sprained your knee. Could be bad luck. Could be worrisome considering he's such a ball carrier heavy type quarterback. So we'll definitely see how that one plays out. But that will do it here for our main event here as well too. And you know what, Kelcey? We still got a little bit to talk about as well too. We got a little bit more time as we get to head into your favorite segment of every podcast as well too. That's ephemerally known as Crunch Time, brought to you by Swift Lifestyles. Click the link in our bio. Use code HIGHLOWSPORTS. Get yourself some nice clean gamer fuel, if you will too. But we got quite a bit going on here as well too. I'm going to go ahead and start with what you have planned this weekend, because it looks like you're going to be indulging in a little bit of fun here.
I am going to be indulging in a whole lot of fun. Heading down to Canton, Ohio for the USFL Championship game. Cannot wait for that, by the way. Of course, the Philadelphia Stars. You can't have a USFL Championship game without the Philadelphia Stars, it appears, even 30 years later, as they continue their streak of appearing in every single USFL Championship game now for the 4th straight time. It's amazing. It just doesn't make sense. A team that has literally given up so many points all season. I believe, let me double check this stat here real fast, but I believe the second most points in the league during the regular season, turned it on in the playoffs, able to make it to the championship game here in Canton, was Philadelphia, led by Case Cookis on offense. But they have turned the ball over on the opposing team 22 times. They've got forced a turnover, led by their all-world corner right now, it seems like, in Channing Stribling, who has 7 interceptions himself. I mean, absolutely fantastic. But they're not to be outdone by that tough Birmingham Stallions team. Obviously, the team I picked before the season as my team, because obviously from Alabama, I have to rep the home team. Jamar Smith leading the way, along with Bo Scarborough and CJ Maribel, the 2-headed rushing attack there. Absolutely been fantastic all around. Led the league. They were 10-0 at one point in time, ended up 10-1. I cannot complain. 9-0, ended up 10-1. Cannot complain about anything that the Birmingham Stallions have done. Been a great regular season for them. But let's not get carried away here and think this is going to be a walkover by any means. But it is going to be a very tough game for the Stars, who struggles the most in the rush game, whereas the Stallions, number 1 rushing attack in the league. So be very interesting to see how that turns out. Right now, it's like kind of a wash. 4.5-point favorites are the Stallions, minus 189 odds. So it's kind of a wash betting wise. So it'd be very interesting to see. But yeah, that'll be me on Sunday for sure. Checking that out. Cannot wait.
I want to point out how surprising Case Cookis has been as well too. Like, he wasn't even supposed to be the guy for them as well too. He was kind of an afterthought, and suddenly he has been on an absolute tear. The only quarterback I've ever seen get kicked out of a game for targeting when he's in college. Just pointing that out. I will never let that go as well too. So I look forward to that game as well too. That should be an absolute blast. I'm also going to mention, for the fans of fisticuffs, it is quite the weekend coming up as well too. So you have UFC 276. Israel Adesanya, arguably Kelcey's favorite fighter as well too.
100% my favorite fighter.
Okay, 100%. Right now. I wasn't sure if there's still a little bit of debate, but it is over now as well too. The last style bender himself, take on Jared Cannonier, who at one point was knocking people out at heavyweight. That he has come a long ways from being in his words, a fat heavyweight to an elite athlete at middleweight as well too, with a different type of power, a different type of skill set. Trilogy fight, Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. Normally when someone wins 2 fights in a row, you don't see a third one. This is that one anomaly, and well-deserved. And rising superstar Sean O'Malley getting his first big test, fighting a top 10 ranked fighter as well too. Absolute doozy of a fight card. Should be fireworks for 4th of July. But there's a little something going on in all worlds of sports right now as well too. Kelcey, do you think Israel Adesanya gets it done?
Oh, I absolutely have to think he gets it done. 22-1, you're going against Cannonier. Obviously, Cannonier 15-5 is different fighter than he once was, but it's still at the same time he is still can blast your face off if he wants to type of fighter. So, but I do think Adesanya he's not called the style bender for no reason. Is the best way I can describe it. Is that he is a tough guy to get a hold of, and even if you get a hold of him, he's a tough guy to bring down. So we'll see what's able to happen. But I think Izzy pulls it out again, and we get to see another Pokemon or Dragon Ball. I don't know what reference we're going to see in his celebration yet, but I think Izzy gets it done.
I think he gets it done. I think he gets it done in a comfortable decision. I think it goes all 5 rounds, because I don't think he's going to let Jared hit him. And I don't think he's going to finish Jared, because Jared is the killer gorilla, is his nickname for a reason. You don't just kill him. I think he picks him apart. I think he makes it look pretty easy as well too. So I really look forward to that fight, as well as the USFL Championship. It is a busy weekend for sports as well too, and it's a great holiday weekend for that. But that will do it for us here. Happy 4th of July weekend to everyone else as well. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you guys next week.